at the insistence of a mutual friend who said, David has a project that you guys should talk about. And so we went to a spooky coffee shop. Yes, we actually went to a spooky coffee shop. And David told me all about Through and his ideas for it and why it was important to him. And immediately it rang true in my heart as like, yeah, someone needs to do this and I'm not gonna let anyone else do this. So I would like to start with asking David, how long have you been conjuring this world and what started it?
Okay, so I think, and by the way, that coffee and meeting at Horror Vibes in North Hollywood, such a great spot. My dear friend Simi, who's actually here in the house, was present at that spot. And one of the many champions for this story, the idea of which originated back in the early aughts, I would say maybe 2005, 2006, I was had recently gotten clean and sober and on a path of like just living life. Before that, I had nearly lost my battle with both addiction and mental illness. And so I was like step by stepping, learning how to live life. And I was certain that I would never act really again, although I was trying. Some friends were pulling me up on stage, but I was certainly writing a lot. And I was doing a lot of avant-garde storefront theater in Chicago, and I was getting really immersed in the worlds of storytellers and filmmakers, both from the amazing theaters that I was getting to go and see every night, but also films from, you name it, Guillermo del Toro, who was just starting to really become quite prominent, and Terry Gilliam had always been a big impact artist on my mind. And this friend of mine who I had done a ton of theater with and I were both meeting for lunches sometimes downtown in Chicago near where he worked, and would go to the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, where they had this really fabulous Henry Darger exhibit. And if you're not familiar with Henry, he was a janitor for a career and a complete solo individual who interacted with very few people other than to go to mass every morning in Chicago, didn't speak to anyone. Everyone thought he was the grumpy, curmudgeon-y neighbor that didn't talk to anyone. And when he passed away, his landlord went into his apartment in Lincoln Park in Chicago and started digging through stuff to clean it out, and found a wealth of thousands of pages of incredible art in this world that he'd constructed, which looked like this mash between like some kind of psychedelic acid descent mixed with children's Victorian fable books. And the idea of something being so hidden and so passionately like crafted in such a sacred space, and what that could potentially lead to, what kind of rifts that could cause in the universe, I was just utterly moved to start thinking about a world that might live right in between the cracks, and maybe we create them ourselves. And then I started to dream up this character who could go into that world. I knew and I cared about some of the potential personal connections to my own psychology and what that story could mean, but I didn't, honestly, Rance, have a fucking clue. Like how personal or how deeply the nerves could run into my own soul. But I just kept sitting with that story and kept thinking about it, and I would write about it, and I would dream about it, and I would think about it, and I would watch old stop motion takes on Alice and the descent into the looking glass, and thinking about all kinds of stuff that inspired me, and over the years, and then I found the Museum of Jurassic Technology when I moved to Los Angeles, and I got to see the incredible sculptures that I found there that were as microscopic as literally within the eyes of needles, and more ideas came together, and then eventually it all started to take real shape.
As you mentioned, there's the Henry Darger influence on this, which is one of the things that, here's a deep cut fact for you. Those of you who know the comic Bean World Bean World exists because Larry read an article on Henry Darger and had been creating Bean World, and no one saw it, and that was the revelation of Henry's life, was the fire under his butt that made him publish Bean World. So. So when David mentioned that as a reference, I was like, oh, I love this already. So another thing that I loved about this is that there's the classic myth archetypes of